Tulsa, Oklahoma, 9:15 p.m. An emergency call comes in to the city police headquarters, reporting a horrifying shooting incident in a residential neighborhood about 10 kilometers southwest of downtown. Gunfire between groups. It seems like some kind of deal went wrong and people are hurt. They're shooting into homes and they're running everywhere. We're all affected and the battle hasn't stopped yet. The terrified voice of the woman, nearly pleading, made the police fully grasp the gravity of the situation. Police cars were immediately dispatched and local patrol units were mobilized to reach the scene as quickly as possible. After more than 10 minutes, officers arrived at the scene, only to witness a war-torn landscape reminiscent of an invasion, leaving them shocked. Local residents gathered around the scene in fear. Some huddled together in small groups, while others shouted angrily, venting their frustration as the police arrived. Bullet-riddled walls and spent shell casings scattered everywhere indicated this was a large-scale incident. A white powder was found spilled on the ground, with footprints trampled over it. Shattered glass from windows littered the area. Even more alarming, 3 innocent civilians were hit by stray bullets and had to be rushed to emergency care. A body was discovered at the scene, a gun still in its hand, cocked and ready to fire. How are the injured? Their condition is quite serious, significant blood loss and severe shock. The ambulance has already taken them to the hospital for emergency care. We've left a team behind to take their statements and ensure their safety. Night had fallen and the suspects had fled quickly. There were likely casualties among those still in hiding. The police began expanding the search perimeter. A team was stationed to monitor surveillance cameras on every street around the area, ready to report any suspicious individuals. Each household received notifications sent to the neighborhood, warning them to be on alert in case the suspects tried to take refuge and to report any sightings immediately to law enforcement to facilitate the arrests. A separate team was assigned to investigate the crime scene. The crime scene covered a wide and complex area with many small side streets and alleys connecting directly to the city's main avenues, allowing the criminals to flee more easily. The white powder found scattered on the ground has been identified as a synthetic drug mixed with various compounds. It seems to be a new type of drug. The quantity recovered is about 115 grams. It was yet another drug deal, with gangs fighting over territory. The scale of the transaction and the gunfire indicates that this is a large organization, likely involving a conflict between 2 factions engaged in the drug trade here. Drug trafficking cases are becoming increasingly complex, dangerous, and expanding in both scope and method. This forces law enforcement to quickly resolve cases, analyze the situation thoroughly, and collaborate with authorities to address these growing threats in society. The bullet casings collected at the scene indicate that 2 different guns were used, one of which was homemade, resulting in much higher firepower than standard firearms. Most of the casings are 9mm rounds, a type commonly favored by violent criminals today. A total of over 30 bullet casings were gathered, and officers are now visiting nearby households affected by the incident to assess the situation and collect additional evidence. 4 homes had their windows shattered by stray bullets, all of which were located on the first floor adjacent to the street. Their getaway vehicles were likely large cars, as tire tracks at the scene suggest at least 3 cars were involved in a chase when one group decided to retreat. The cars braked hard. There are plastic fragments scattered here on the ground, about 5 meters from the walls. These could be broken pieces from the front and rear lights of 2 different vehicles. They kept chasing each other. All the roads leading out of the scene were ordered to be searched, with authorities checking for suspicious vehicles. Checkpoints were immediately set up. They can't have gotten far yet. If we mobilize patrol units further out, we still have time to catch them. Witness statements must be quickly collected to determine the appearance of the criminals and the vehicles they used to flee. We absolutely need to catch them fast. Witnesses being interviewed reported that the getaway vehicles were black and silver SUVs. Due to the darkness and distance, they couldn't clearly see the license plates. There were about 2 or 3 black SUVs and 1 silver one. It was so chaotic that I can't remember clearly. There were at least 20 people. I saw one group of men surrounding another man holding a black fabric backpack, and then another group arrived and they started shooting. They shattered my windows and my kids were terrified. This has to end soon. We need our peace back immediately. I was on my way home when the shooting started. Bullets were fired right in front of my path, and people started panicking and running in all directions. I ran too, but I couldn't cross their line of fire, so I ran the other way and hid behind a large pillar of the building across the street. I only just came back. Many people were shot and injured. I saw them carrying someone into a car, and some were shot in the leg. I think that's what happened, as I saw a man limping and getting into a vehicle. All of them were armed. I recognized one of them. He's a homeless man who usually sits by the underpass. Every time I pass by, I notice something off about him. He never asks for money or anything, just sits there quietly, and sometimes people come to talk to him. Show me where you saw that man, at which underpass, and when you last saw him. This new information from the witness suggested that the criminal was posing as a homeless person, possibly using the underpass as a spot for small-scale drug deals. The people taken to the hospital are now out of danger but are still in shock. Their accounts are similar to those given by witnesses at the scene. However, one more important detail has emerged. A man who was injured, now being cared for by his son, has spoken up. One of those guys is the leader of a gang near my son's school. My son said he's seen him before at the local high school, west of downtown, about 5 kilometers from where today's shooting happened. They call him Alex. He's around 20 years old. I saw him near the school gate after classes 2 days ago. We now have 2 suspects identified by witnesses. The next step is to track them down. One team is being sent to the area around the high school, while another team is dispatched to investigate the underpass below the downtown intersection. The only victim's body at the scene has been sent for forensic examination and identified. Several identification documents were found on the victim, confirming him as Adam Eward, 28 years old, living in the west side of the city, the same location provided for the second suspect. Adam had a recent criminal record related to violence and appeared to have been involved in a drug trafficking organization. A small amount of white powder was found in his jacket pocket, wrapped in a small roll and tucked inside his coat. He had 3 gunshot wounds on his body, with a fatal wound to the liver, dying from excessive blood loss. The shot was likely fired from a homemade weapon, and the strong force caused a portion of his liver to rupture, leading to continuous bleeding. Another suspect has been identified, and the police immediately began investigating information and contacting his family. Adam had a mother and a sister with whom he lived, but their relationship was often contentious. His mother and sister were grieving his death despite their troubled relationship. However, the sister didn't seem shocked by the news. Adam was a rebellious child. He frequently skipped school when he was younger. My father passed away a long time ago, and my mother had to raise both of us. Adam always competed with his friends and blamed our mother for not spending enough time with him. He didn't understand her struggles. I knew he was involved with gangsters, and not long ago I saw him high in his room. He didn't let us interfere in his personal life. Can you tell us about some people or places Adam frequently contacted or visited? The location provided by Adam's sister is on the eastern outskirts of the city, which is completely different from where they live and where Alex was seen. It's possible that they operate in both areas, or they could be 2 different organizations that are either rivaling or collaborating in illegal transactions with each other. There was a new lead at the school. Someone knew Alex's address. He's the leader of a group of students who exploit and bully others at school. They have a private meeting spot where I've been taken before. Can you promise us that you'll stop them from bullying us? With a wish that every child deserves, the student revealed the secret location to the police. It's not far from the school, and they had rented an apartment there under the name of a person named Richard. The police prepared to surveil the place and set up a perimeter for an arrest. The kids gathering there had already committed offenses that could be charged. Many of the children had recorded their actions at school and were ready to provide that evidence to the police. They needed to understand how harmful their actions were. At the same time, in the downtown intersection underpass, the police had collected all the surveillance footage from the previous days related to the suspect as described. He had been carefully observing the area, sitting right at the entrance steps, cleverly disguised with a beard and hair covering his face, topped off with a hooded sweatshirt. Wait a moment, look closely at the people who gave him money. Some he shakes hands with, while others he doesn't. Those he shakes hands with are the ones buying drugs from him. They're conducting transactions right in front of us. The other homeless people are sitting far away from him, indicating they know he's dangerous, or that they know something about him. If he's lurking in this spot, his clients will definitely come back here again. The investigation team had also arrived at the location provided by Adam's sister on the eastern side of the city. One group was sent to scout the area, while the other team planned the operation. There's a high likelihood this is a gathering place for a drug trafficking group from the west, possibly a new gang. Detective Tom, who was in charge of the case, uncovered a clue. The location provided by Adam's sister used to be a stronghold for an armed criminal group, an abandoned building far from residential areas. This place was once burned down 3 years ago and is now uninhabited. However, the complex terrain makes it easy for criminals to hide. We need to concentrate a large special operations team here, set up a perimeter, and equip ourselves with sufficient weapons. In the room that served as Alex's hideout, the surveillance team spotted a group of people sneaking inside. The arrest operation in such a crowded area required high caution and quick tactical responses. Immediately, a specialized unit was dispatched to the location, and the raid commenced. Inside, there were also students, and the surveillance team had captured evidence of them engaging in illegal drug transactions and violence against other students. A hidden camera had been set up in the room, thanks to the homeowner. The police outside recorded the entire criminal activity. They exploited these kids, luring them with drugs and forcing them to extort money, a form of grooming minors and enticing them into a life of crime. The special operations team took their positions, ready to launch the attack. Everyone, pay attention. Ensure the safety of the kids and minimize gunfire as much as possible. The doorbell rang, causing them to grow suspicious. Just as the door creaked open, the police burst in with overwhelming numbers, taking control of all the students inside. Alex and his crew panicked, pushing the nearest students aside and attempting to flee. They're trying to escape through the back door, surround the entire rear area. By the time they realized they were surrounded outside, it was too late. The gang members began to raise their hands in surrender, but Alex was cunning. He drew a gun and grabbed one of his henchmen, pressing the gun to his head. "Everyone step back, or I'll shoot him." Behind Alex, the students were handcuffed and quickly escorted outside. Everything had been handled smoothly. Both the front and back of his position were completely surrounded. The situation was no longer critical. As the back door opened, a warning shot fired by the police startled him. Seizing the moment, the special operations team quickly launched their attack. The henchman was rescued, but Alex was determined to shoot, and the police were forced to intervene. Alex was shot, and the police had to take action. His gun fell to the ground, and he was subdued. All of them were taken to the police station for immediate questioning. After the confrontation with Alex, the police had to focus their forces on preparing to deal with the second group of criminals. Meanwhile, Alex and his accomplices were being interrogated. Alex remained defiantly silent, but the henchman he had threatened became a whistleblower, revealing all his crimes. Alex has an organization behind him. He controls a small area near the school and started selling drugs to students while forcing them to bring in money for him. Besides students, he also deals with many other spots in the city, exploiting both students and college students to deliver drugs for him. He manipulates everything. The incident at the intersection was also related to him. He was the buyer of a large quantity of synthetic drugs from a new organization in the East, but was interrupted and robbed by another group. We don't even know which group they belong to. They could be rivals of the gang dealing with Alex. What do you know about his Eastern partners? They are the main suppliers in the area. Alex always looks for direct dealers at the lowest possible prices, eliminating middlemen. They are definitely a powerful force, and they also have heavy weapons. From the last encounter, it's clear they are suicidal. They're willing to kill their own and destroy everything if they feel there's no way out. That's what he did to his henchmen that day. According to his testimony, Adam was taken hostage, so they killed him to protect their secrets. At the intersection, there were more than 10 of them, but I'm sure there are many more at their base. The information provided indicates that the danger level increases as they have heavy weapons and act like suicide squads. But no matter what, they need to be caught and face consequences for their crimes. The special investigation team reported that there were at least 50 people at the stronghold. Inside the warehouse, there were many goods. and they had a guard team and surveillance to alert the outside. The best time to strike was at night. The special forces received the news and immediately prepared to deploy. Police cars stealthily moved towards the eastern part of the city. According to the reconnaissance map, they began to navigate into position during the night, placing a perimeter 50 meters away to avoid alarming the criminals. Snipers took out the sentries in the darkness. They only realized what was happening when the police got close, and the sound of gunfire erupted suddenly. Following that was a continuous barrage of gunfire. They tried to break through the encirclement with bloodshed, but it was futile. When the police pushed in, they began to fight to the death. One of them resorted to explosives. If the police didn't retreat, the entire area would be blown up in a minute. In the moment before he could finish declaring, a shot rang out, and they were completely caught off guard as the police did not relent. A large cache of weapons and drugs. If the police withdraw, it would be like releasing a tiger back into the jungle. Justice will never be served, crime will continue, and more people will die. A fierce battle ended, with casualties on both sides, but the criminals were apprehended and justice would be served. The total casualties from the battle included 3 lightly injured police officers, 2 suicide squad members dead, 5 injured, and a total of 54 individuals arrested. Nearly 40 kilograms of drugs were seized, along with a series of guns and homemade explosives for investigation. This is a major case that has sent shockwaves through the community. The gang leader, severely injured, was rushed to the hospital and placed under tight security. The others were gradually being identified. Some were local residents, while others were newcomers. The investigation will continue. Many more details need to be uncovered. Who is the opposing gang? Who is backing them to transport and manufacture drugs and weapons through key routes into the city? Where do they get their drugs from? And who is responsible for creating and modifying the guns, as well as manufacturing the new drugs they have? All of these questions need thorough investigation. The students arrested by the police were placed in rehabilitation centers for detoxification after their guardians were called. Tears filled the eyes of parents who could not imagine what had happened to their children. To them, most of these kids were well-behaved and obedient. Some were a bit rebellious, but they still loved them dearly. Once again, the threat of social evils, drug dealers, and juvenile crime cast a shadow over society. Tragic events had occurred, shaking the city with fear. A new war was beginning. A new task force was established, comprising experts in crime analysis and police officers responsible for gangs, combined with a drug enforcement unit. Everyone will fight again, no matter how long and fierce the battle may be. The perpetrators must be apprehended and face the consequences of their crimes. The truth must be brought to light.